Okay. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? I'll wait to see if you can hear me. Okay, I think you can hear me, actually. Hi, car guy. Okay, so hello, everybody. I wanted to hop on and give you a brief update on what's been going on in the Pike County case. Oh, hold on. I'm just have to message somebody really fast. Let me see if I can invite him, if he'll come on. So I wanted to give you an update, but I don't remember how to invite somebody on. Oh yeah, is this it? Let me see if this works. I should have planned this better. Oh, that's the wrong link. Shoot. I'm trying to remember how to get the link to invite somebody on Zoom, because I'm doing this on Zoom via YouTube. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and continue because I don't remember how to do this. I've done it like once before where I've shared the link on this meeting. I know how to do it on when I set up the meeting. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. He's busy. I was going to have somebody come on with me who was in the courtroom for Rita's testimony. But basically, I wanted to come on and tell you what happened in court this week. So unfortunately, I wasn't there. I wasn't really covering it on Tuesday. I was sent to the Daryl Brooks case in Wisconsin for Monday and Tuesday, which is just crazy. The case is weird. It's really sad, but he's representing himself and shouldn't be representing himself, and it's bizarre. But anyway, there was no court on Monday because it was Columbus Day, so no court in Pike County. Tuesday the focus was on the May 13th, 2017 search of the Flying W farm, which is owned by Frederica Wagner, Billy Wagner's mother, and Jake and George's grandmother. So they went through and pulled out a bunch of guns that belonged to the Wagners that were stored there because they had moved, they had sold the Peterson Road property and were preparing to move to Alaska. So basically, they pulled all of these guns out of these boxes, evidence boxes, showed them to the jury, and said, here you go. No, none of these are the murder weapon. Okay, so obviously they didn't know that at the time. They were just looking at for guns that the Wagners owned. And remember, Jake had the list of guns on his phone. So they found some of those guns at the Flying W. Also, they found the picture, or they found the, they found the bulletproof vest in, Billy Wagner's bathroom in his bedroom. And the reason that's important is because Jeff Tackett, one of his friends who used to work at the Flying W, had told law enforcement that a week before the homicides, he went into Billy Wagner's bedroom. Jeff Tackett opted out. You know, he seemed kind of nervous about testifying, but he opted out. So I was in the courtroom the day he testified. He told them that Billy Wagner had a bad hip or something. His sister Robin was popping his hip, and Robin Wagner took Jeff Tackett back there. This is a week before the homicides. He went back there. He saw what he called a full metal jacket, which I'm pretty sure, even though that's like something on a bullet, he was talking about a bulletproof vest. He saw a vest with a holster, a billy club, and a .22 Hornet and ammunition. And he said that he said to Billy, you're going to kill somebody. They're already dead. So I think law enforcement, having that information that Jeff Tackett gave them in like September of 2016, when it comes to May 2017 and they're searching, they find this bulletproof vest and they're like, oh, here we go. Here's what he was talking about. Well, we all know that since I've been covering this case a long time, I know that Jeff Tackett, told them that, but Frederica Wagner was asked about it in her grand jury testimony. And she said she bought that bulletproof vest for Billy after the homicides. She was charged with perjury and obstruction. They said she was lying. Well, then Frederica's lawyer goes and looks up her like PayPal records or whatever and finds that she did indeed, after the homicides, buy Billy a bulletproof vest. She said she was, trying to protect him, but he wouldn't wear it. She was fearful he would be killed or something because Chris Roden was his best friend. So when Frederica was facing those charges, her lawyer, Jim Owen, went to BCI and said, I want to see the vest. So he looks at the vest. He opens it up and sees that this plate inside is manufactured after the homicides. And so the charges against Frederica were dropped. Now, the prosecutors have always said, we are reserving the right to refile these at a different time. But they still have to prove that she lied about ordering that. And it was like that was purchased. Also, like some type of leather jacket was purchased, like with some fringe, if I remember correctly. I have this in Emotion somewhere. It's like all the stuff that was purchased. And I think there was like confusion over whether it was like eBay or Amazon or PayPal or something like that. It was a hot mess when it happened. So they find the bulletproof vest, they find all these guns, they take all these pictures, they find spent casings of ammunition, none of it related to the homicides, okay? So then Wednesday, we hear about Billy Wagner's cell phone records and where his cell phone was the night of the homicides and then in the nights following or days following. So historically, his cell phone had used towers that service the Flying W, right? And on the day of the homicides, or, April 21st, he had called Chris Roden Sr., a couple of times that day or whatever. He had called other people too. But April 21st, 2016, they showed cell phone tower records. It was the first time in 2016 that Billy Wagner's cell phone had been at the tower that services the Peterson Road home where Angela, Jake, and George were living. It was the first time in 2016 that his phone had been there. And then they showed, Julia Eveslage from BCI showed a calendar showing that Billy Wagner's cell phone had like started the day and ended the day at Peterson Road from April 21st on. And that was like the first time that whole year that his cell phone was using that Peterson Road tower, like starting the day and ending the day. So basically they're trying to say for the first time, the first time in 2016, Jake and George and Billy are all together at Peterson Road, or at least their cell phones are using to that tower, at least Billy's was. And every other night or whatever, aside from the times he was doing his truck driving, I guess he drove a truck sometimes. Aside from the times he was doing that, he was at Peterson Road, April 21st on, starting the day and ending the day, at least his cell phone was. And they talked about how he had called Chris Sr. that day. What else happened on Wednesday? They might have shown they showed some text messages, I think. I still don't understand the relevance of them. One I think was in August of 2016, where Billy had told Jake something like, that he was proud of him and he was always Jake was always tougher than George or something like that. But he also said he and his mom, they should never have fought in front of them because it's not good for a kid's self-esteem or something like that. I'm still trying to figure out the relevance of all that, because it's quite clear, it seems, that Jake was the favorite. That's what I'm getting. That Angela favored Jake. George, we heard this week from Chris Newcomb, Angela Wagner's half brother, who's really more the age of Jake and George. He's 20 years younger than Angela. He said that, the boys, when Angela said jump, they jumped. And George would fight with Angela and push back on her, but he still apparently ended up doing what she told him to do. And Chris Newcomb also testified that George would protect Jake. So I think that'll become relevant to the state, at least, because the defense in a motion a couple months back had said that, few months back, really, months ago, said that Jake told the investigators in his confession that George only went along that night at the last minute to protect Jake, fearing that Billy might kill him. This is apparently what Jake said, according to the defense. So that may become relevant there. Chris Newcomb, I thought he was a pretty good witness. He was funny. He said he defended them, and then he defended them and told people constantly that they weren't involved in this. They didn't do this. And then after Jake confessed, he was like livid. He was enraged, he said. He spoke highly of Hannah Roden. He liked Frankie Roden. He said it was a monstrous act that should never have happened. And yeah, that was pretty crazy. And then also that day that we heard from Chris Newcomb, we heard Angela Wagner's interview at the border in May of 2017 with BCI. Wow, is all I can say about that. She was clearly trying to cover for herself and the kids, and she really, I thought, slipped up. She was not prepared to be confronted with the custody papers. She was not prepared to be confronted with the Walmart shoes and the receipt. The 22 shell casings really threw her. She suggested that Frankie Roden actually had fired guns at her house. I don't know if she's trying to, on the fly, suggest he killed his family and then killed himself, which, if you have seen the crime scene photos, seems pretty darn impossible to me. Yeah, it was crazy. So her BCI interview is really, really interesting to listen to. She asks for an attorney at the end. So she lawyers up, which is everybody's right. But she clearly lawyered up. She didn't have answers for any of their questions. She was totally caught off guard. So it was pretty crazy. Then on Friday, we heard from Randa Hughes, who is the fiance of Chris Newcomb. Also Chris Newcomb said that he didn't introduce Randa to his sister for years because he didn't want her to meet him, or didn't want her to meet Angela. Sounds like Angela is very controlling. Chris didn't even get along with her. I'm not sure who got along with Angela. I'm really not sure, except for Jake, it sounds like. Sounds like nobody got along with Angela. Nobody has said anything nice about Angela. Randa said that it concerned her after the homicides. She saw that Jake and George had dyed their hair dark, and that concerned her. And she apparently expressed that to one of her family members. She talked about how Chris felt so betrayed afterwards. Chris also said he loves George still, but he doesn't love Jake and Angela. I thought that was interesting. He said Jake was the brother he never wanted, but George was the brother he always wanted, and Jake was the brother he wished he never had, or something like that. He said Jake was totally OCD. It was pretty wild. He said that Billy was as useless as tits on a boar hog. I thought that was hilarious. Didn't like Billy at all. So then later, we also saw tattoos. Apparently, in June of 2016, 2 months after the homicides, or about 2 months after the homicides, Jake, Billy, and George all got tattoos, and they got them down at some place in Portsmouth. And George's is like, I guess the dead man's hand is on his shoulder. And then the there's a skull. Sorry, I'm trying to remember all this. I was thinking about I laughed because I was thinking about something Chris Newsom said, or Newcomb. But there was a skull with an 8-ball in its mouth. And George apparently got this after the homicides. We haven't heard any more explanation about that. But then also, we've talked about this before, at least I think I've mentioned it before. Billy on his right finger, like here, has a scorpion that he got with like 8 kind of bumps on it. So I'm assuming we'll get some explanation about that. Jake got a tattoo with like, somebody told me it looked like pistons or something from a truck, and a C that looks like Cummins diesel or something. I don't know. People are speculating that that means the murder truck is a Dodge or something like that, because they use Cummins diesels. But I thought the murder truck was a GMC Sierra. I thought that was thought I had read that actually somewhere. I read it somewhere. Pretty sure I did, that it was a GMC Sierra. And I thought I read it in the jury view stuff. I'm going to have to look it up. I've got so many documents and stuff, it's hard to keep track of. So then Rita Newcomb testified, and she opted out, unfortunately. But I know that people I trust told me what was going on in the courtroom because I was working from home. But Rita apparently talked about how Angela asked her to, and Rita, for those of you who don't know, is Angela Wagner's mother. Rita says that Angela asked her to lie about signing those custody documents, the guardianship documents. Rita says she lied because she'd do anything to help her kids, and then God told her that she needed to be doing something differently. She spent 8 days in jail after she was arrested for that. She had to sell her farm and to pay her legal fees. She said that 8 days in jail was the worst time of her life. She told Randa and Chris apparently that she lied, and they told her she needed to talk to her lawyer, and her lawyer, Frank Gerlach, told her that if she told the truth, everything would be okay. She got charged with a misdemeanor, pleaded guilty to the misdemeanor. She suspects, apparently, and this is like crazy, that George and Jake and Angela stole her beloved horse named Gypsy. She believes they stole her horse. That's nuts. She also said that, like, on cross-examination, she was asked if anything happened to Angela in the Air Force, and she said that Angela was sexually assaulted in the Air Force, and that's why she left the Air Force early, because Angela had been in the Air Force, I think, for a year, maybe a little over a year, but left early, and that was down in Florida. So, obviously, Rita said that Angela asked her to lie because she said, Mom, if you don't lie about this or say you did it, they will hurt me or something, hurt or kill me. I don't know what they means. So who knows who the they is? I don't know who the they is that she's referring to. Yes, Donna is saying they asked Chris if he would welcome George into his house. He said, yeah, that might be going a little far or something like that. He was like, I like the guy, but I don't know about that. I don't know if I want him around my kids. Like, it kind of gave that impression. Also, I thought it was weird that he talked about Jake. And Angie Canepa suggested that basically that Jake wrecked George's truck on purpose with Chris Newcomb in the passenger seat. And Chris Newcomb said he was nearly killed and that he had to, it took them like 4.5 hours to cut him out of the truck. Like, he was a mess. Angie Canepa suggested that Jake wrecked the truck on purpose and then encouraged Chris to sue for money, sue the insurance company. Why? I don't know. I'm assuming she's going to ask Jake about that, but it makes no sense to me. Yeah, I think that's what they're going at, Juliana, that Angela was sexually assaulted, and that's why she was obsessed with the grandkids possibly being molested. I wonder if that's why she also thinks that sex is only for having babies. Yeah, apparently she did. She took the kids to the hospital thinking that BCI had poisoned the kids after they had been interviewed at the border. I have no idea what this is. There's obviously something mentally wrong with Angela Wagner. I just don't know what it is. Like what that is. That you would because apparently they accused BCI of poisoning the kids. They accused Beth Ann of poisoning the kids. Tabby was accused of poisoning the kids. I don't get it. I don't know what it is. Okay, guys. So I think in this coming week, I'm not really sure what we'll hear about. I know we still haven't heard the wiretaps. I'm interested to hear those. Oh, yes. Danielle, thanks for reminding me about this. Chris Newcomb said that Jake's bedroom was pink and that he would like be in his truck driving down the road singing the My Little Pony song. And he was like, why are you singing My Little Pony? And he's like, oh, it's Sophia's favorite song. But he's like, she's not here. But he apparently was like, sounds like he was into My Little Pony. I don't know. We're gonna have to figure all this out. So I probably skipped over stuff. Chris Newcomb's testimony I thought was kind of a gold mine. I almost felt like he said stuff that helped George, but at the same time he said stuff that helped the state. The whole thing about George protecting Jake and pushing back and arguing with Angela, but then still doing what she said most of the time, and then him, you know, he and Jake were like night and day. But anyway, I got to get off here. I got stuff to do. I just wanted to hop